Alright then. It's time for our tier list for Command and Conquer. And there's no music in the background. A little bit different from the other ones, shall we say. So I'll note this tier list is basically all about the OSTs that Frank Klepacki basically made for the original Command and Conquer. And I'm going to be doing this list a little bit differently from the other ones. And that each time basically I hit the pause button for my recording software here. Basically right here. I'm going to basically give you a listen to these OSTs and ranking them for you right after that. Also worth knowing, by the way, is I'm basically listening to the remastered versions here, and not specifically to the OST ones, but just the regular remasters. So keep that sort of in mind. I have listened to the other ones as well, but I figure keep it simple. Just keep it down to the minimum of these iterations. There's basically a lot of iterations of some of these songs, so decided I want to pick one and go with it. So this is what I went with. Alright, rambling here a little bit. Let's hit the pause button and let's get this list started, shall we? Alright, so Act on Instinct. Let's just get this playing in the background for now. So, Act on Instinct is basically what I consider to be the Command and Conquer sort of theme song. It basically has a nice little shifting of different sort of tone sets basically to it. You have this sort of beginning set here. It's like and all stuff like that. But the nice thing about it is that it has these sort of basically these sort of lore sound bits like this here. And it's basically where in the OST basically hear someone talking let's bring this to an end, stuff like that. And then after this is done, this goes into a different sort of beat here. And yeah, Act on Instinct. It's definitely one of the more iconic songs I think for Command and Conquer, and it's one of those songs I really like for the most part. I won't say it's the best song that Frank Klepacki basically made, but it's definitely one of the ones I prefer over the other ones. So really like this one. It's excellent. All right. Now I'll jump into Airstrike, so bear with me one moment. Alright, so Airstrike, i.e. the credits track. Alright, so what can I really say about Airstrike? Airstrike is one of those soundtracks in the game that really doesn't really have any real vibe to it, and it's a credits track. It's basically meant to sort of cap off the game. But I found it to be sort of a little bit muted and sort of lacking a little bit. It's basically something you play with the credits basically to sort of kill time as the game sort of ends. And it doesn't really have anything really remarkable about it is the thing. Compared to say Frank's other tracks, it does its job, I guess, but I don't really find it to be all that attractive versus the other ones, so I think I have to basically give this one a mediocre because it's just basically not as good as say something like Act on Instinct or some of the other ones. But don't worry, it'll be worse than this one for sure. So let's just get to it, shall we? Because I know it's going to be worse than the Airstrike by a mile. Cannon Chase is next. All right, so if there's a track that I probably would have removed from this OST, it probably would have been Canyon Chase. So, fun fact, this is basically a 40-second song back in the original Command and Conquer that basically in the remastered version here is basically 2 minutes and 42 seconds, but really once you listen to the first 40 seconds, you got the gist of this song. And I'll note this is very much a transitional song in many ways because it basically is this transition between one OST to another. But you don't really need that basically this OST for this game. So it just comes off as nothing nothing at all really. Yeah, basically at this point you listen to the song basically more or less its entirety. So that's Canyon Chase for the most part. And honestly, it's terrible. Alright, on to the 80s mix. Alright, so the CNC 80s mix. Easily one of the more jazzier, like, themes of the, the OSTs. This has like a few like, tidbits to it that, like, other songs basically sort of like take from it, but by itself, I can't really say I think much of these mix all that much. It doesn't really feel like, it really plays into like the theme of like, the rest of the OSTs. Or like really anything for that matter, so yeah, it's just like this there. But there's like one part I really like about the like OST, so I'll wait for this to pop up and then I'll make a note of it. Because here it is right here. Do 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 do. Now it's not a bad track by any means, it's just like, not one I find really meshes well with the rest of the game. I don't want to say it's laudable because it does have like its bits basically you can take out from it, but really it's like mediocre, so I'll throw it with Airstrike and just leave it right there. And now for CNC Fang. Yeah, ha ha. I realize it's unparable, but whatever. CNC Fang. This is the mission that, like, this is like your gameplay. You're just like, having fun, building up your base, and then you have like this GDI tank rolling up on you. You set up your troops basically to like battle it. And it's like, phew, missile fires. Boom, tank shoots back. A grenadier pops in and throws a grenade. Boom, your guys go blow. A flame trooper pops in, scorches the grenadier. Kapow! So you're just grooving along with this one. And then of course, yeah, always fun. Definitely one of the better like songs, and it really works well with, like, with the slow pace of the game. If you're playing slow, of course. Would I rank it an A class? Like an A rank, I think. Probably. Because this is basically one of those songs, like, you're not really like listening to it for the most part for the song itself, but rather for, like, how it basically interacts with the gameplay itself. It's really fantastic. An excellent song overall. Alright, Creeping Upon is next. Alright then, so let's talk about Creeping Upon. Alright, so this is definitely a very atmospheric song, and unlike with, like, CNC 80s mix, this one really feels like actually fits more with, like, the theme of, like, Command & Conquer. Now, I can't really see this as being like a great game, like a song. It's basically like CNC Fang, but it's not terrible. It's basically like something you basically do in like your downtime, like basically building up your base and watching like your obelisk or like your like guard tower, basically blowing up stuff as it gets close. Not a whole lot to really say about it. It does its job. We'll say this was laudable because there is better, but it's better than, like, say, like some of the other stuff down here. So yeah, B rank for it. Alright, Demolition's next. Alright, so what to say about Demolition? Demolition is a really fun song to listen to. And it's pretty good for passing the time where you're basically in-game doing, like, very mundane stuff like guarding Tiberium. It might also be fun basically when you're like blowing up, like, the enemy's base after, like, you trash their army. Pretty good song. I would say it's like, as good as say Act on Instinct or, CNC Fang, but along with like Creeping Upon, it's basically like, you know, a laudable song for what it basically does. Just gonna throw it right there. Alright, Depth Charge, another covert operations song if I basically recall correctly. Alright, well, I'm sensing a theme here for like the covert operations, like, you know, OSTs, but oh well. What can I say about Depth Charge? I'll note this is basically one of the OSTs that sort of starts off very slow. And basically, as it goes along, it basically builds up a little bit more steam. And then once you basically get to like, you know, the minute and 20-second here mark, that's where it really starts to get into like its real groove. It probably wouldn't have been one of like, the better songs, but the thing is, like, once it basically gets into its groove at this point, it doesn't really like, you know, really go nuts with it, so to speak. Like, there's like some nuts, like, you know, parts where it like goes like a lot more like, you know, in depth. Like now I got like a little more sound basically going on here. But then after like it like, you know, finishes this part here, it's like, you know, calms down again. So it's like up and down basically in the second part here of the song. I don't think it's a bad song, it's just like it's not the like one of the better ones. So yeah, it's basically another mediocre song. So let's just throw it there. Alright, it's time to die. Alright, so, die. Alright, so, this has got beat to it. And it builds up real fast. Unlike, say, Depth Charge, which is basically for this. What to say about Die? Well, with a name called Die, it's all about saying stuff to die. I can see this being a good song where you see where you're basically assaulting like the bases like, you know, defenses and gameplay. Or doing something where like a whole lot of your guys is about to die. And you know there's no way of basically getting around it. It's just time to die. A really rocking song this one for sure. And I think that's easy enough to say it's laudable. Alright. Drill's next. I guess I'll see you guys in 4 minutes. This will take a while to go through. Alright, well. Drill's apparently another covert operations mission. Or like, you know, OST rather. And unlike with the other ones that I basically covered so far, it's definitely one of the better ones. It basically has this sort of like, you know, atmospheric feel to it, which is basically something I was aimed for with the covert operations like OSTs. And that makes it really good for like, you know, doing stuff in the background, like, you know, having like tanks fight each other or harvesting of like the, you know, ore with the Tiberian harvester. But this is like not a bad song to basically listen to while you're basically doing all this stuff. So you could be fighting and like, you know, doing like tank battles and stuff like that. That's fine. You could be like this harvesting Tiberium. It's nothing epic, but it doesn't really need to be. It's excellent basically for like, you know, all the other times they see in the game for the most part. So, drill. The first covert operations, you know, OST to get all the way up to excellent. Good for you. Alright, down to drone. A lot more laid back this one will be. And a little bit longer than drill, but not by much, so. See you guys in about 4 minutes again. Alright, another covert operations OST. Drone is a very relaxed OST for sure. And I see it's basically being the OST that really chimes in with like, you know, some of like the later game missions of like the Nog campaign. say like, those like two like new construction option missions, or going after like the cloak tank, the stealth tank rather, the plans for it. It's basically one of those like, OSTs that's like really about like, what's the AI gonna do? What am I gonna experience here? Yeah, basically explore like the entire map. I basically see everything the AI is basically doing. I'm just sort of like building up my forces, waiting for our Tiberian to roll in. Very like, lullaby basically for the most part, I guess I'll say. It's basically a waiting soundtrack for the most part. I think it's okay for what it basically does, so, it's laudable. We'll throw it right there. Alright, fight when we prevail. And you know what? I think I'm actually going to let this play without pausing, because this is only a minute here. This is very iconic, by the way. You splurge this in for like a minute and then like go into the next track for the most part, right? So alright, that was the Fight Win Prevail OST. What can I say about that one? It basically like, it's fantastic. I mean it's only a minute long, but you don't really need a whole lot for like a minute to be like awesome. And that just proves it. There's a fantastic track for you. Alright, so I didn't actually pause this time around, so GDI map theme I guess will go next, and this is a minute, so shouldn't be that long. Alright, so this is basically where like you're on the European map, trying to decide which location to go to next. What this theme basically does is pretty good, doesn't it? You're probably not going to be in here for more than like 30 seconds, right? So it doesn't have to be that long for a track, basically. And then, of course, if you don't choose in time, it just ends, and that's fine. You can basically decide in silence. Now, honestly, I can't really reveal all that great basically in the game itself, but it's still good for where it basically is, right? So, an excellent little track basically for like what it's meant to do, and it does it well enough. And again, by the way, we didn't actually pause there, so let's do it a great shot. Now, note by the way that this is like, extended, and around the 16-second mark is basically where this like soundtrack really begins. This is usually what you hear. So, basically, scores are breaking down how many like buildings and units basically killed, what your final score is, and all that stuff. I kind of think there's a second, like, great shot coming after, like, return to base immediately and stuff like that in the later part is a little overkill, but again, it's a fairly decent track. I'll throw that one basically in laudable. Alright, now we get into, like, the next one, Heartbreak. I don't think Heartbreak was basically in the original Command & Conquer. I think there's, like, a problem with it this one, but whatever. I'll give her a listen. I'll come right back to you guys in 3 minutes. Alright, so Heartbreak. When I click on this, you're basically going to hear a sound that really sort of breaks this one for me. So this sound here, it really sounds whiny to me. I don't think it really fits basically with, like, you know, Command & Conquer all that well. Or the song, really. I mean, the song is fine, but that whining sound basically in it, as like this sort of like, you know, melody sort of thing, is just... really, to me. There's our first efficient song. I think this one's basically hidden by default, and you can basically enable it, I guess, in like the soundtracks or whatever, but... whatever, it's just efficient to me. I don't think it's basically like, you know, as good as the other ones, and it's not even mediocre. It has issues with it, with the whining sound, basically, so, yeah. Alright, so, Industrial. Here's a good one. I'm gonna enjoy this one. Be right back in 3 minutes. Alright then, so, Industrial. This is another one of those songs that's really good to basically play in like the downtime parts of this game. You know, basically play up your bass. Listen to something basically jamming along here for a little bit. Maybe some like, you know, enemy tanks pop in. You just blow them up. I wouldn't say it's really great for base assaults or anything like that, but you know. Most of the time in this game you are assaulting enemy base, so there's that, right? Industrial. Another excellent song for sure. And yeah, note that a lot of these like, you know, songs basically are like excellent or laudable, because they all have like really good things about them. There's like a few fantastic ones as well, but you know, you'll basically see a lot more of those if you like Red Alert for obvious reasons. Alright, In the Line of Fire. This one's 2 minutes, so it should be fairly short. Alright, so In the Line of Fire. This is an OST I really like in those tense moments. Maybe GDI has like a flank coming down towards your Nod base on one part of like the map. A tank basically coming down another part of the map. And you have to react to basically both like sides to this attack. And figure out how to sort of like, you know, deal with it to survive. Else it's game over. I mean, it's not something you basically use all over the place, but it's okay. It's laudable. Alright. Now we get to In Trouble. That's the one where it starts off like this. It's not good, you know. Alright, well, I'll listen to this for 3 minutes and come right back to you. Alright, so fun fact. These OSTs I'm listening to, In Trouble would usually have a lot of vocals in it, but I guess these like remastered like OSTs I listen to right here, they don't actually have the, you know, Looks Like Trouble and stuff like that basically happen right here. So this is basically a, like, you know, the soundtrack by itself basically, and it's pretty good even without the vocals. It's basically a soundtrack that I could see basically being one that, like, you know, it's basically as good anywhere in the game for the most part. You can use it for like base assault. You can use it basically for like, you know, downtime. It's just good overall. Nothing more to really say about it. It's excellent. Definitely very excellent, I think. Alright, Iron Fist is basically another Covert Operations 1. Let's listen to it. And I'll be back in 3.5 minutes. Alright, so, Iron Fist. It's got some interesting bits to this one. in many ways, this is like, another one I could say basically use to fill time, like basically waiting for like stuff to start happening in game. But you could also basically use it, I guess, like for like basic salsa and stuff like that as well, if like you want something to jam basically into the background. I certainly like this part. And when I basically get into like this like next part over here. Gotta love Iron Fist. I won't say it's excellent, but it's certainly a laudable attempt at making like a really good atmospheric song that like, you can jive to. It's laudable. Alright, now it's time to just do it up. And again, this is basically like, the remastered, like, non-vocal one here, I guess, so... I don't think there's as much just do it up in this one, but whatever. See you guys in a couple minutes. Alright, I should probably rephrase that a little bit. So, just do it up. Let's just see if we get to it. Alright, so note that there is like a bit of like the sound just do it up in there. It just doesn't have like the other vocals basically in it. It's like what's basically the song is basically all about. But anyhow, just do it up. It's very like in like sort of like the the sort of like similar settings of like say CNC Fang. Where you basically like can groove into this and like just like chilling out as like your tanks basically do battle against like infantry and like your enemies blowing up and stuff like that. But I've always felt that this one was like, not as good as CNC Fang, but it's okay. It also has those like, soundtracks basically in like the vocals and later ones where, let's get back to Equal Justice and stuff like that, but whatever. It's laudable nonetheless, so let's just throw it right there. Alright, time to march to doom. In game, I would say March to Doom. It's very much one of those like OSTs I could give or take. But just listening to it now by itself, I can actually see some merit basically to this song. The essential idea of it is basically like as a start here. You to listen to it. You have like your troops basically marching to doom, and you have like this very like solemn melody as a result of it. And basically in the background of the game, it's like, not all that special or anything like that. You're basically, just listening to his music, like it just plays in the background, kills time and stuff like that. But the thing about this, like, soundtrack here is that it's actually got like a finale to it. And in that finale, it basically goes from like, you're marching to doom, and then you actually like, come to terms with your doom, so to speak. So, the last minute of this song is basically like, very solemn like this. The marching is done. You've fallen for most part, I guess. And you're coming to peace, so to speak. And that really like bumps it up a little bit for me, this like song. A little bit more than I thought if I'd be like, rating it as a result. Laudable. I was gonna rank it mediocre, but it's laudable. Alright, the non-map theme. And yeah, I'm just gonna let this play because it's basically a minute, right? So the African map, pops up. You're looking to what country to basically invade next. This one is as long as the GDI one, I don't think. Which is basically like, a minute, but it's long enough. Again, you're not going to spend more like in half a minute, right, doing this stuff, so it doesn't have to be that long. Alright, well. Yeah, map theme. Yeah, I'll throw it back up to excellent. Alright, gonna just pause here for a moment, and I'll be right back. Alright, as you can probably expect, this is a long process. You can actually see down here from like the time that I've been doing this for like, over an hour at this point, so it's a long process. There's going to be breaks and stuff, but I'm pausing too, right? So I can take those breaks. Alright, so that's an odd map theme. Let's go to an odd score. It doesn't have to do much, right? Because it's just basically for like when you're in the score menu right there. You're probably not going to spend more than half a minute anyway, so yeah, another excellent little track there. Alright, now, probably one of the best, OSTs of the series. See you guys in 3.5 minutes. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this one. And yeah, nope, by the way, this is the one without vocals, so it's just a soundtrack for me, right? But whatever. I should probably note, by the way, if you're basically like looking to like, rate these yourself, it doesn't really matter which one you basically use. They're all like, fairly similar, whether they have like the vocals or not. But whatever. See you guys in 3.5 minutes, as basically said. Alright, still ticking down here, but I think the last like 10 seconds was just like dead air, so whatever. No mercy. I was gonna say this right now. Fantastic. One of my favorites. Probably the favorite of like, Command and Conquer. And what's not to like about it? This is the one where I basically like basically playing as Nod. You're basically just like, driving toward the enemy base with like your flame tanks. You're about to burn it down after being on the back foot the entire time of like, the match. And it's ready to take the fight out and just take them out. No longer will I tolerate the legacy of these fools. All there really is to say. And it's worth knowing about it. This is like, one that basically has like, all of like the no in the background. So it is like that one vocal in, but it sort of goes along with the other like, tracks where like, you have a lot of like these like little like, vocals like, single word vocals basically in it. Alright, on the prowls next. Again, I'll see you guys in 3 minutes. Well, I guess on the prowl kills time in game. There's not a whole lot really to say about On the Prowl. It feels like one of those like, very mediocre songs. In terms of like the other ones basically in the OST, like, soundtrack. So it's mediocre. Alright, so, just gonna pause recording for a moment. Alright, well, I knew this is probably going to go too long, but that's basically why I've been pausing and stopping everything else. I'll basically just pick this up in our part here. Going from prepare to battle for down to like, we will stop them, deception. There's still some good ones basically to go to, by the way, here, because, we got Mechanical Man to see, and like, a couple others in here that might be like, worth knowing, like Full Stop, for example. But, just taking a break for now, so just going to stop it right here. Alright. Part 2. Here we go. Alright, I made my mistake by with this list here because I forgot to put it in prepare for battle, but I'm just gonna go over here and like listen to it, so here we go for it. Be right back in a few seconds then. Alright, so I'll note that prepare for battle is basically one of those like, OSTs I would actually like, but it's just too damn repetitive. I'll note that basically, like, for the first, like, 40 seconds, it plays, like, just sort of, like, amp up type of, like, music, like, prelude to what's basically to come. But then the next 40 seconds that basically follows it is basically a repeat of, like, that prelude. And that's basically just as, like, OST, like, here. It basically repeats itself a little too much. Like, basically, like, you know, have this, like, little group basically for 40 seconds. And it's a nice groove basically sort of like built into like a, you know, an OST basically. Like it feels like it's about to build into something like really epic. But then as soon as you get to like the 40-second mark here, it just starts repeating like the prelude. And like, you know, it'll keep going for like, you know, a minute to 20 seconds here, and it'll like, you know, go into like the actual like, you know, meat of its like, you know, soundtrack part. And there's also like layer bits parts of its like, you know, OST where it basically repeats itself a lot, so I would like prepare for battle basically if it's a lot shorter, I think, but it's just too repetitive basically as it is right now. I think I'll say that one's mediocre because it's just not that great to me. Alright, on to the next one, Radio. Alright, just listen to Radio. Radio is basically another one of those songs that's like just sort of like blends into the background for the most part. You know, it doesn't really have anything really epic about it or like, you know, really stand out about it, but it's CNC basically through and through. I'm not sure why I say it's like anything really special, but I won't say it's bad because it's got like a very interesting beat to it, which is like mixed up as like it progresses along. So I think I'll say it's laudable. Alright, so Rain in the Night. Alright, I'll see you guys in a bit. Well, I just finished listening to Rain in the Night, but I forgot to basically play any radio for you guys, so let's just play for a little bit. So, something I know about this game, like, you know, Command & Conquer, is that a lot of the music basically sort of like, you know, branches out into a whole lot of different genres. You basically have like, you know, a little like DJ like, you know, mix here, and we have like, you know, some heavy like, you know, hip hop type of like, you know, type of beats basically there. It basically runs the gamut in like, you know, everything that's basically being like, you know, presented to you. Something like Radio here, it feels definitely CNC. And I'm basically like playing this right now also for, you know, comparison to like the next one, Rain and Night here, because I'll jump into Rain and Night here in a moment. Wait to just get to like the minute here. So here's basically Rain and Night. And this is basically one of those OSTs that's like very starkly different from like the last one here, and many others basically in like the like, you know, overall soundtrack. It's got a very jazzy tune to it as well in bits of it, so there's that too. Like there's a jazz basically popping up right now with a saxophone. And there's actually something to note about it. There's like some tracks basically in like, you know, CNC that sort of feel a little bit off for like the game. I mean, back in the day, like, you know, the heavy mix, like, they're experimenting with, like, this game and trying to figure out what the, like, you know, sort of stand for would be. But this one sort of, like, feels a lot, really out of place for, this game here. Because it doesn't really, like, you know, mix or match with, like, any real, like, you know, aspects of the game. I'll note that, like, for example, Untamed Land that you'll basically see down later on, that basically has, like, a sort of, like, African theme to it. Which is, like, you know, at least relates to the African campaign. But this one right here, what's it relate to? Maybe if like you were in like Asia, this might relate to something there, but you know, I'm just not sure it really relates to anything. This one, unfortunately. So I have to really say that, you know, Rain and Night here, it's kind of mediocre for me, I think. I could possibly see this being like maybe like, you know, a good track and all this stuff, but it's just not really good for CNC, I don't think. Alright, the next one. This one is definitely not going to get a high score, by the way, but whatever. Reaching out. Actually, you know what? Let's just let it play and I'll just basically talk here for a little bit. So, Reaching Out basically has like a very like sort of outlandish theme that like, you know, it feels like again like, you know, very like East Asian, more like, you know, in sort of like sync and stuff like that. But the theme for music is also very different as well. Because it's like reaching out into other worlds. This is like a theme that basically pops in like, you know, later on with like, you know, Tiberium Sun and like, you know, Tiberium Wars. But not really for the original Tiberium Dawn. I think out of all the OSTs, this is like the worst one for me, so let's just get this out of the way. It's terrible, this one. By the way, I should probably worth throwing out. Cannon Chase actually like believe is actually like, you know, involved like that Orca Chase scene where with the GI campaign you have like that Orca basically going through the canyon. That's basically where this basically is like drawn from. But whatever. I think what really kills this one for me is like this like sort of like mumbling sound right here. And you have like the East Asian sort of like, you know, sort of sound here. You know, if they basically made like, you know, a sort of Asian campaign perhaps for like, you know, setting like the Tiberian Dawn set of like the game. Like a new game for that. This would probably be like good for it, but whatever. Outside of that, not really sure. Alright, the next one's going to be Recon. Now, I'm going to basically sort of hate myself here for a little bit because I thought this was basically Recon as in like, you know, reconnaissance, but it might be something else. And I say this because I have like, you know, Recon down here is like, you know, be uncapitalized here because, you know, Recon is this like, you know, lowercase word. But that aside, I'll just listen to this and I'll be right back in a moment. Alright, I'm running low on time for this episode, but let's get toward the end, basically Recon here. I'll note that this is basically another one of the like covert operations tracks. And, you know, with that basically tone is basically more atmospheric, meant to be basically like play in the background. And I have to say, basically this is one of the better ones because this one here, I think really gets to the heart of like, you know, this game. As well as like, you know, Tiberium like, you know, Sun, and to some extent Tiberium Wars. It basically sort of like, you know, mixes in with like the feelings of like, you know, Tiberium, and to sort of like, you know, uneasy like settling nature of it, so to speak. Alright, so the sound's basically done there, but that's fine. I'll continue the rest of it as we like, go along here, but Recon, definitely like a laudable theme, so we're basically up there. And that'll be it for like this basically section of like, you know, my video here. I'll continue on like the last of it here in a bit. I'll be taking them out to like, you know, we will stop them. That'll be for next time. For now, hope you guys please enjoyed this one. Take care. This should be it. There shouldn't be any more interruptions to my recording. I should be able to get done and get these last 7 out of the way. Alright, so I'll just going to take them out, then I'll be right back. Alright then, so take them out. So, Take Him Out is basically one of those songs that I basically consider to be very similar to like CNC Fang over here. Basically it's got this like sort of like rhythm to it where like, you know, you can basically have in the background like, you know, while straight like the medium tanks basically come toward the base and a couple grenadiers over here and there basically. It's a little bit more like, you know, rhythmical, basically say this one. But yeah, it's just like, you know, it's too just like namesake. Basically, like, you know, take out the guys that are just straying around your base and stuff like that. And other times, basically, it's good for like harvesting Tiberium, like, you know, just jazzing, just like beat in the background for a little bit. What I'm saying is, it's an excellent song, I think. So let's throw it up there. Alright. Here's an iconic one. Target, Mechanical Man. Because I am a mechanical man. Alright then, so it's definitely a very like iconic song because I'm a mechanical man for the most part. I think we have a little bit here for it. So, Mechanical Man is basically like one of those songs that I basically view as being like very similar to like Act on Instinct. So I'm just gonna throw it up here in excellent. What I really like about this song is that it's got a like really interesting, beat to it basically, where it's like, really fast like, tempo. And yeah, it's got the Mechanical Man basically in it there as you can basically hear as well. So, this is like a song that like, you can basically play like anywhere for the most part. The only like real grievance that basically have it is basically, the mention of like Mechanical Man over and over again because it kind of like gets in the way of like the beat itself. I'm basically one of those people who like prefers like, solid melodies over like just, a little bit of vocals and stuff like that sometimes, but whatever. Alright, To Be Fierce next. Let's see how it goes. I'll be back in a couple minutes. Alright, To Be Feared. I kind of wonder what this is basically in reference basically to. Because this could be a song that's basically in reference to, like, fearing Tiberium. Or it could be, like, in fearing of, like, the enemy forces and stuff like that. Or just a situation. It's a cool little track, but I think I'll only say it's laudable. But I do like the beat for it, which is like, part of the reason I basically rank it as laudable and not like mediocre and stuff like that. It could be like, a little more distinct toward like, maybe what it's basically referencing, I guess, in a song, but whatever. Alright, Untamed Land. And I'll say it's basically, up front, this is basically the one, like, that sort of basically, like, fits with, like, the African sort of, like, nod theme, I guess. Alright, I'll just listen to it and I'll be right back. Alright, what to say about Untamed Lands? So, I'll note that it does actually fit with, like, the sort of African theme, but it doesn't fit at all, basically, the European one. And this, like, sort of, like, sound like you're hearing right now, is basically, like, the song, basically, in general, all the way through. There's no, like, real mix-up of, like, different, like, sort of tunes in this one, and it gets a little bit repetitive, basically, for most parts, so I think we'll say it's Untamed Land for mediocre. It's probably going to be, like, I'm probably going to go and do, like, all the OSTs, basically, from, like, Red Alert and like, Tiberian Dawn type of thing, and I'll probably be ranking this basically as being, like, very high in the mediocre list. Or maybe, like, move it to laudable, maybe move it, like, down to, like, the lower part of the laudable list, but, it's basically one of those, like, sounds that, like, it's just really, really average for, like, this, like, game, I think. So, that's basically the medium point for all the songs here. Which is not really saying much, because, like, look what's basically behind it down here. Not much. Alright, so Voice Rhythms basically in our Covert Operations OST. 5 minutes. Be a little bit, but whatever. Alright, well, if there's one thing to really say about Voice Rhythms, I basically had to turn up the volume a lot in order to, like, listen to that one. The thing about Voice Rhythms is that it's very, like, silent and slow moving. And that's, like, it's, like, really, like, biggest drawbacks. Otherwise, it's a fairly excellent, like, OST. It's got, like, a really good, like, sort of bearing on, like, what the Tiberium universe is basically all about, basically, here, because it basically sort of, like, highlights basically, like, how, like, alien and, like, exotic basically, like, Tiberium basically is, but how wondrous it is as well. That's basically how I see this song. And it works really great, basically, like, having you guys basically running and battling for this, like, sort of, like, environment. Tiberium harvesters, like, doing stuff. So, I think I'll say it's an excellent one. I'm not really sure if it's like, you know, the first like covert operations like, you know, OST I basically have all the way up here. There might be others, but you know, it's definitely one of the best like covert operations like, you know, OSTs for sure. Alright, now we get to the last two good ones. Warfare full stop is first. I'm gonna be jamming for the next 3 minutes, by the way. Alright. Warfare full stop. Automatically, this is gonna go up to fantastic. So, I'll note that CNC isn't really known for having like sort of fast-paced music that's like, you know, basically like sort of outside. I'm saying this the wrong way. CNC isn't really known for having like fast gameplay. It's basically more like slow and like, you know, tedious. But this song here is basically a lot more like sort of upbeat, which is basically out of the mix for it. But it really serves a purpose when you're basically like, you know, getting to like the end game of like, you know, your like missions and stuff like that. I imagine this is like, you know, you're basically going through like the final mission against you know, King Sarajevo Temple. You basically are like just rolling around. There's like glass base there just before his like, you know, temple comes in sight. You send like all your forces basically in like a mass assault. Like it's full on, full stop warfare for the most part. And of course there's gonna be a prelude to the finale like after it, but you know, it's still an excellent song. Like regardless of what you're basically doing here. And it's also good for those like, you know, very upbeat and like, you know, tense situations as well. So all around it's like a fantastic song. Also, it's got a lot of like, you know, bits and pieces to it, whereas like, you know, melodies here, rhythm there. It's awesome. We will stop them. Alright. Alright, so that's the last one. So, we will stop them now. Deception. The theme itself basically very much reminds me of like those commando type missions for Nod, where you're basically trying to steal the control rods, or like, you know, do something basically underhanded, basically like, you know, underneath GDI's nose. Or even like the reverse, basically with like GDI, where like, you know, you have like your engineer basically sneak him in the back of his base, so like sort of like, you know, basically like sort of backdoor it that way. You know what? The mission where like, you know, the obelisk is basically introduced for a GDI campaign, mission 9. That's where I basically see this like, you know, really standing out. Like, you know, you're sending your forces to like the back door, so to speak, away from the obelisk. It's like, okay, we'll just basically be like, you know, deceptive and come back over here. It has a really evil feel to it as well, which is like, you know, very much in line of like, you know, Klepacki's like Nod faction, so there's that too. It's not something that can be played like all the time, I don't think, but you know, it is laudable enough. Alright, so, there we go. That's the tier list basically for like, you know, all the OSTs as I basically ranked them here. Now, I basically have already done this like a few times at this point. Basically, I'll note by the way in like this game, like, you know, each time you see like, you know, save like your like template here, you have to basically like, you know, go in like, you know, delete and stuff like that, so I'm just gonna copy everything over here. So save. But yeah, I'll note by the way if like you go to like, you know, this here you see there's like multiple lists basically from like, you know, me right here, so we're gonna have to delete this one. You can delete it right down here. If I go here basically now, you'll see it like, you know, just the one. I'll note that you know, Team Maker is like a cool idea, but it's also very simple as you can basically see as well. Just a throw out there, but whatever. Alright, so there's the list that I basically made. I'll just go to act and instinct here for a little bit.
We are going to have to act if we want to live in a different world.
Alright, so there's my you know, my list ranking for all the like, you know, pieces here. I'm kind of surprised basically like, you know, where some of these like, you know, basically ended up for me. I would have thought like, you know, some of these like, you know, things like CNC 80s mixers, like, you know, some of the original music. And like, you know, other ones would be like a little bit higher than they were, but you know, when I basically listened through them, I like realized that they're like not that great. Basically, just sort of like, you know, listen to it basically in game in many ways. Other ones I'm not really so surprised by. I'll note that basically there's a lot of like, you know, cover operations like missions here that like, you know, cover operations like OSTs here are basically are lower ranked than like, you know, the main ones, but you know, I think it's basically par for the course because they're basically more atmospheric. Alright, well, I'll be doing another one. I'll see you guys when I basically return for the Red Alert music, basically. And yes, even like some the additional music basically I added with the remaster, I'll be doing a list for that too. Take care, all.